It's so stereotypical. And I'm crunching my face up when I speak. Oh! Yes! Oh! Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to down myself. It is fucking time. It is. Oh, I'm gonna make it to 116! Yes!
Round 115, achieved by Syndicate on November 3rd, 2011. This record would go on to gain over 14 million views, seen by people who had never touched Call of Duty. To this day, this remains the most popular video in the zombies community. And the map it was done on? Kino, the most iconic map in zombie history. So what makes this map so iconic? And why does this map contain one of the greatest speedruns of all time? First, let me explain the basics of the map. Kino has 8 rooms, 9 mystery box locations, 5 perks, 5 traps, 2 wonder weapons, claymores, and a teleporter that leads to the Pack-a-Punch. The teleporter is located in the theater room, a key room in the map which contains a power switch, claymores, juggernog, and 2 box locations. Another key location is the lower hall. This room contains a fire trap. This was a first of its kind, and allowed the player to kill more zombies in a bigger area. While seemingly insignificant at the time, this trap would prove crucial to future records. Lastly, Kino would introduce a new wonder weapon, the Thunder Gun. This weapon contained 2 shots in its magazine and 12 in its reserve. Despite having a small amount of ammo, the weapon dealt infinite damage, which made games safer, especially in tricky situations. Okay, now that I've explained everything, let's get into the first record. On November 13th, 2010, 4 days after Call of Duty Black Ops released, the douche would achieve round 47. Unfortunately, there is barely any footage of his game, therefore we do not know the exact strategy he ran, how long his approximate game time was, and if he died or aired. However, we do know he most likely ran the stage strat, which involves running around the stage and using the thunder gun to kill the zombies. Lastly, we do know he had a ray gun, which he most likely used to force drops such as a max ammo, and he had monkey bombs, which is a distraction device. As simple as the setup and strategy was, it proved crucial for earlier records. 2 weeks later, Master 21 would achieve round 53, making this the first round 50 in Black Ops. Unlike the douche's strategy, Master would use the teleporter leading up to the Pack-a-Punch room to kill the zombies. Despite the strategy being much slower than the stage strat, it was much safer, allowing for higher rounds to be somewhat achievable. However, because the rounds were slow, it was very boring. Matter of fact, Master said his game took him 5.5 hours just to reach round 53, when the douche's stage strat would only take him roughly 3 hours to reach round 50. This was a problem because barely anyone wanted to play a game that took 5.5 hours only to round 53, and because of this, Master's strategy was scrapped and never used again. On December 12th, 2010, J-Love's 2 game would achieve round 80, beating the previous record by 33 rounds. Just like the douche's record, J-Love would run the stage strategy. Although, there was a problem. J-Love's game was probably modded. Why? Well, on round 80 he had 1,841 kills. The reason this is suspicious is due to the fact he only used a thunder gun to kill the zombies. If you're not counting dog rounds, J-Love should have had 16,879 kills. However, if we count dog rounds, and we are generous enough to give him dogs every 4 rounds up to round 80, he should have had roughly 7,800 kills. Still, that's a huge difference. Secondly, in his game over leaderboard, he achieved 797,570 points, which is strange considering he only used a thunder gun to kill the zombies. Technically, you could argue he made the points from using wall weapons or weak box weapons, but it's easy to rule out the assumption because modern day players who are really good at making points struggle to reach 800,000 by round 80. Lastly, J-Love would down roughly 2 minutes and 35 seconds in the video. Once he was revived, he instantly threw a monkey. However, instead of immediately buying his perks back to stay alive longer, he decided to play without perks. Because of this, it is argued he wanted to end his game due to boredom, although I disagree. Instead of being revived and purposely running towards the zombies in this game, how come he threw the monkey immediately after? Obviously, this is really suspicious, and because there's a lot of evidence pointing to his game being modded, I think it's safe to say it's not the record. However, 2 months later, a more believable record would be set by another player. On February 1st, 2011, Jam would achieve round 91, setting a new world record. Although unlike the stage strategy, Jam would run his own unique strat. Jam's strategy involves starting at the stage area, running down into the lobby area, and then activating the electric trap. Then he would run into the PM63 area, then run into the foyer room, and lastly into the dressing room, which leads to the stage area. The reason Jam ran into these two areas is because the PM63 and dressing room had electric traps. When the lobby trap was recharging, he'd run into the PM63 room and activate the electric trap, and continue the circle. Once the PM63 electric trap was recharging, he would do the same thing with the dressing room and repeat. While the strategy was simple, it was very efficient, allowing him to get through the rounds fast and making this the first known trap strategy on the map. This would prove crucial for future records as running stage would be too slow and boring, though that didn't mean running a trap strategy was more fun. In fact, it was still boring. So boring in fact, he purposely ended his game because of how repetitive the strategy was.
Hey, what's going on guys, it's Dave here, and I've just finished the live stream, and I was wondering where people were going in the live stream. I'm unsubbing, and all that stuff. But I realised it's because the live stream cut out before, and didn't show the end. I said, this is the end! And, ironically, the live stream cut out at exactly that point.
This is Dave the Rave, and while unknowing at the time, he was the new world record holder. However, this record wasn't like the previous ones. Instead of achieving round 92, he achieved round 109, the first round 100 on Kino. On top of the round 100, instead of running Jam strategy, Dave ran a strategy similar to the previous records, the stage strategy. Because Dave achieved the first round 100 on Kino, it would popularize the stage strategy even though it wasn't as efficient as Jam's strategy. Still, there is one plus side to the stage strategy: trading. Trading is the term used for swapping out a specific weapon, and then getting the specific weapon back out of the box. Despite trading being entirely luck-based, if you're lucky enough, you could play faster than Jam's strategy. Unfortunately for Dave, his record would not stand for long, although it would lead to the most known record in zombie history. On November 3rd, 2011, Syndicate would upload his record of round 115. Well, unknown to popular belief, Syndicate actually achieved round 116. Still, that isn't a huge difference. And just like the previous records, he ran the stage strategy. However, what makes this record stand out from the rest is because it is the most viewed video in Call of Duty Zombies. Hell, over 14 million people viewed it. Even people who never touched or heard of Call of Duty saw this video. That's how popular it was. And because of this, it would give Syndicate a jump start in YouTube. So much so, it led him into a multi-million subscribed YouTube channel. What if I told you Syndicate's game was modded? Yeah, the 115 game. Okay, I know you're surprised by this. How is a 14 million viewed record with nearly full gameplay modded? First, let me explain the most conclusive evidence against Syndicate's 115 game being cheated. On October 16th, 2011, Syndicate would upload his first video of the supposed 115 game. In the video, Syndicate achieves round 69. However, that's not what I'm here for. What I'm here for is the character he is playing as. In the video, Syndicate is playing as Nikolai. However, a day later, Syndicate would upload 3 more videos leading up to his 115 game. These 3 videos show him on round 71, 75, and 81. Although there is a problem with these 3 videos. Instead of playing as Nikolai, Syndicate was playing as Takio. Keep in mind, it is impossible to change your character mid-game. On top of that, in the description he says he played the round 69 game over the course of 6 hours with breaks. Keep in mind, this was uploaded a day before the round 71, 75, and 81 gameplay came out. So what are the odds of him taking breaks, playing through round 69 and 81, editing, rendering, then uploading 4 videos within the span of a day? And in the description 69 game, he says he stopped playing with Mule Kick because he downed with a Thunder Gun in his 3rd slot. Now in the 71 footage, he says the exact same thing in the description of the video.
Because I've just been really avoiding stupid downs, but the only stupid down I've had was at round 27, and that's when I had mule kick. Now everyone's been like, why no mule kick? And the reason for no mule kick is simply because I had it, but I got the mule kick and then I got the thunder gun. So the thunder gun was in my mule kick slot, which is an absolutely idiotic move. I just completely forgot about losing it. I just didn't think I'd go down, to be honest. I got a bit overconfident.
So this proves that Syndicate's game was spliced because he said the exact same thing in his round 69 gameplay, and he was playing as Nikolai, not Takio. On top of that, Syndicate replied to another video Russian made about his record. In the reply, he says, "My game crashed after the round 69 hype video I posted, so I had to redo the run. So I picked up where I left off. I understand the confusion of me talking about the downs, etc., but I literally picked up where I left off as if it was the same run." Wait, so you're telling me your round 69 game crashed after you uploaded it, then you somehow banged out another game and achieved round 81 the next day, and then somehow edited, rendered, and uploaded round 71, 75, and 81, while in the process of taking breaks? What? Hell, to even add more evidence, he uploaded a Minecraft video on the same day too. Now you could argue he played the Nikolai game within a couple of days before uploading it, but what are the odds of him uploading the videos within a day apart and then claim they are the same game? But there's even more evidence to prove he spliced this game. In Syndicate's round 69 game, he had a film reel. Now in his round 71 footage, he did not have a film reel. So the only way for him to get rid of the film reel is to go up to the Pack-a-Punch room and then put the film reel inside of the movie projector. Now when that happens, the big screen in the theater starts changing pictures. However, in Syndicate's 71 game, there were no changing pictures on the screen, adding more evidence that these are not the two same games. To add on top of those two, in his round 69 game, he never got monkeys from a max ammo. However, in his round 71 and above gameplay, he has monkey bombs. Keep in mind, Syndicate would have had to do trades before round 69 in this game, and the chances of him not getting monkey bombs up to that point is almost zero. So, with this conclusive evidence, it's pretty obvious Syndicate modded. Now, there's still more evidence against this record being cheated, although I would say it isn't conclusive evidence, but it is still highly suspicious. If you remember, Syndicate said he downed on round 27 in this game. However, he took another down in round 81, and word for word, he says,
"Oh my god, my second down. You have got to be shitting me."
So, Syndicate says he's got 2 downs. Now that means he bought Cook Revive 2 times. So, to stay alive longer, he goes to buy his 3rd Cook Revive. After you buy your 3rd Cook Revive, the machine disappears, meaning you can no longer purchase it. So after your 3rd down, you have to play flawlessly or game over. Anyway, because Syndicate got his 2nd down, he goes to buy the Cook Revive for the 3rd time, which means it should disappear. Well, the next time we see the location the Cook Revive machine is on round 84. And the Cook Revive machine is still there. Right off the bat, this is very suspicious. Now the Cook Revive machine is no longer there as seen on round 114, confirming he did not mod the Cook Revive machine to stay there. What most likely happened is he is referring to the round 27 down he took in his 69 game, which is obviously a different game than the one he is in. However, once again he tried lying and saying the round 69 game was the same game as the round 71 game. Technically, you could argue Syndicate misspoke, but I find that really hard to believe since he specifically said he took it down on round 27. And then on round 81 he said that was word for word my 2nd down. Another red flag with Syndicate's game is a wall buys. Now if we take an example such as the M14, once you buy it, it will permanently stick out of the wall, showing you bought it before. And this is the case for every wall buy. Because of this, I will show every wall buy he did not buy in this game. Keep in mind, Syndicate only had the AK-74U, MP40, and M16 bought off the wall up until round 71. So this raises a huge question on how he played his early rounds. Theoretically, he could have bought either the 2 doors in the first room, and if the box was there, he could have hit it and got a weapon to get through the early rounds. Still, this seems unlikely because his early round strategy seems much different than the ones he used.
But yeah, if you hadn't actually heard of me before, I'm Syndicate and I like to play zombies.
And you love to buy the M14 off the wall too. Lastly, in 2 suspicious occasions of his 115 gameplay, it black screens for a couple of seconds. Starting around 14 minutes into the video, Syndicate gets himself in a somewhat unsafe position. And at 14 minutes and 14 seconds in this game, it black screens. Now this could be a glitch with the recording, which is 100% possible, but I do find it weird it happened at this exact moment. The next time his gameplay black screens, it starts at 27 minutes and 56 seconds. This is somewhat suspicious since this gap is much smaller than the previous ones in the video, and it just so happens to black screen as soon as he is about to get past it. I know some of you guys are saying, well, he doesn't know how to activate no clip or God mode. Well, in this video, it shows Syndicate activating no clip, which proves Syndicate knows how to activate God mode and no clip. However, it is fairly easy to dismiss a black screen since it takes a couple of seconds until the no clip disappears at the top left, and in the second clip he took a hit from the zombie. Plus, there are multiple occasions of him black screening at random non-suspicious parts in the video. Now this evidence isn't conclusive. Hell, it's not very suspicious. However, if we put the conclusive evidence and the highly suspicious evidence together, I think it's safe to say Syndicate's 115 record is, in fact, cheated and not the record. Despite Syndicate's record being cheated, it wouldn't take long until someone got a new world record. Matter of fact, it would only take a couple of days. On November 5th, 2011, Ravex would achieve round 120. Just like Jam's record, Ravex would run the same strategy, although it is more than likely he ran the stage strat up to round 100 plus, and then ran Jam's strategy, which would explain why he had over 1.5 million points. Unfortunately, there is barely any gameplay of this record as everything was unlisted. So figuring out what he ran in the early rounds and what round he ran Jam's strategy is almost impossible. However, this would leave a final mark on the stage strat. 2 days later, Relaxing End would upload his personal best of round 113. This video would reveal a new strategy, the fast lobby strategy. Unlike the stage strat and Jam strategy, this new strategy would prove to be more consistent, faster, and safer, making it the first of its kind. Unfortunately, players would not use the fast lobby strat as soon as Relaxing's video came out. The reason players did not use it as soon as possible is because zombie players weren't as known back then. There were no mainstream strategies at the time. Because of this, the strategies players used for world record attempts would vary until many months, if not years, until the best strategy was finally used by most players. A month later, the Jim would achieve round 132, beating the previous record by a whopping 12 rounds. As expected, Jim would not run the fast lobby strat. However, he ran a strategy that used electro traps. Unfortunately, we do not know what strategy he used for the electro traps as there's barely any footage of this game, although we do know he was running trap strategies as practice for Verrucht world record attempts. At the time, people thought this game was modded because he was only using electro traps, and Jim saying this was practice for Verrucht was very odd because if he truly wanted to practice, he could have went to Verrucht. Still, it makes sense why Jim said this because Kino is slightly easier than Verrucht when it comes to trap strategies. On Verrucht, the only way to kill zombies in the higher rounds is to use electro traps. Despite the change in strategies, Jim's record would not stand for long. 3 weeks later, a zombies legend named Zerotol DT would achieve round 133 running the fast lobby strat, finally proving the strategy can be used for very high rounds. Also, this was the first record since Mato Master's game to have an estimated time it took to reach round 133. The estimated time was 44 in-game hours, which shows you how long these games can be. Thankfully, you can pause your game, although if you couldn't, it would stop most players from achieving a high round. Those who are willing to attempt the world record would have suffered from health problems. Anyway, you might have noticed I called Zerotol a legend. The reason I called him a legend is because of the world records he would achieve a month later, the Moon and Ascension solo high round world record, both becoming the first resets on any map. If it wasn't obvious enough, Zerotol was extremely talented. therefore making his Kino record stand much longer than the previous ones. In fact, his record was so good, every previous world record holder's chance of beating the 133 game was crushed. Although, that didn't stop one player. Who are they, you ask? King Jack. King Jack was an upcoming zombie player who had only one goal in mind: destroy every map he touched. To say this was an understatement is wrong, because on June 15th, 2012, he would upload a new world record of around 142, crushing Zeratol's world record. Yet, this time his world record would run a new strategy, the insta-trap. This strategy was invented by LA and later optimized by King Jack, as shown in the gameplay. The strategy involved the fire trap and the electro trap leading from the lobby to the stage. First, a player would start in the fire trap room and activate the electro trap leading to the stage. Then the player entered the stage and waited roughly 20 seconds for all the zombies to spawn in. Once the zombies spawned in, they would go through the trap into the lobby, also known as the starting room. Because they went into the lobby, the zombies spawning from stage would die in the electro trap, causing new zombies to spawn in the lobby. This would allow for an easy horde up as the zombies were spread out because of the open space. Once the player finished hoarding up the zombies, they'd go into the lower hall. After the player reached the room, they would activate the electro trap and rebuild the window next to the MPL wall by. They would continue to rebuild this window until the fire trap ended, and immediately went to activate the electro trap leading to the stage, hence the name insta-trap. As simple as the strategy was, it proved to be much safer and faster. Although there is one small issue with the strategy: it lacked consistency. When the player activated the electro trap and waited for the zombies to spawn, they didn't just spawn in the stage, they also spawned near the starting room. This would prove a problem as the zombies spawned in the window next to the left side of the trap, meaning the player would occasionally have to jump through the trap with 1, 2, hell maybe even 3 zombies nearly killing them while they are stunned. If they were lucky enough to get past the trap, they would have to wait for the zombies to spawn in the lobby. Most of the time this was not an issue as the majority of the zombies that walked through the trap spawned instantly. However, there were a few zombies that took a bit longer to walk through the trap. These zombies were called Nova Crawlers, or Novas for short. They became a problem as they moved much slower than normal zombies, meaning they would take much longer to walk through the trap, therefore causing late spawns. This made hoarding up much harder for the player as they had to deal with the zombies that spawned instantly, as well as the zombies that spawned later, leading to unfair downs. Still, this was not a big issue, rather more an annoyance as the player had a thunder gun, which can kill an entire horde instantly with one shot. So that begs the question, was this strat really an issue to run? Not really. Because of this, it would be used by King Jack multiple times in future world record attempts, as well by other players too. Out of the blue, a new record of around 179 would be achieved. Unknown to the community, this new record would be achieved by a new player. At least that's what they thought. Remember King Jack? Yeah, he would beat his record by a landslide. Keep in mind, he beat his previous record by nearly 40 rounds running the exact same strategy, making this one of the biggest round gaps in Zombies world record history. On top of that, this game became the first of its kind. How so? Well, King Jack reached the first insta-kill rounds on Kino. If you don't know, insta-kill rounds are a bug that happens on every Black Ops 1 map. Starting on round 163, the zombie's health goes back to round 1 health, continuing on in a pattern. Once the zombie's health reaches a 32-bit integer limit on round 163, it's forced back to the round 1 health because it cannot go any higher than this number, allowing players to kill the zombies instantly with any weapon. Because this bug exists, it makes rounds faster and safer, allowing players to get through the high rounds more consistently than before. Yet, it made world records harder to achieve as a player would have to make it around 163 with only 3 lives. This can be very tricky because making it to round 163 can take at least 27-28 in-game hours on Kino. However, since the strategies were slower back in the day, this would take up to 35 to 40 plus hours, making it even harder to achieve this round. Still, if a player reached round 163, their game would become slightly easier because of insta-kill rounds. This would heavily motivate players to beat King Jack's record, and a month later, a player's dream of getting the record would come true. On August 4th, 2012, a player named Horde Kill Repeat would achieve round 188. Just like King Jack's previous records, he would run the insta-trap. although his game would last over 70 hours. While insignificant at the time, this was the first record on Kino to push the map to its limits. Why, you ask? Well, if you remember Zeratol's resets on Moon and Ascension, Horde Kill Repeat got extremely close to it. In fact, he was so close, had he stayed alive for another hour, he would have reset, making it the first on Kino. Unfortunately for him, he would get trapped by a zombie next to the couch in the fire trap room. Although instead of turning around and shooting a thunder gun, which could have saved him, he instead shot his T-gun forward, causing him to only kill a Nova Crawler and eventually led him to down. Despite the unfortunate down, Horde's record would go down as one of the most influential records, because on August 24th, 2012, King Jack would reclaim his record and achieve round 193. And this time, he would make his record stand because he achieved the first reset on Kino der Toten. Also, this was one of many attempts to reach round 200, a round which had not been achieved on any map at the time. This would give Jack a slow yet big following in the zombies community, as many high round players and casuals wanted to see the first 200. This was significant because it was one of the first times the high round community and casual community was not divided, making the hype for the first round 200 even more exciting than before. Because the quest for the first round 200 was getting so much hype, it would motivate King Jack. In fact, it would motivate him so much he would achieve round 175 on 5, round 191 on Doris, and eventually round 198, 2 rounds away from 200. As unfortunate as this was, King Jack would keep his promise of achieving round 200 because on March 3rd, 2013, he would achieve a brand new world record on Kino of round 199. Yes, you heard that right, round 199, 1 round off the 200. To make matters worse, he reset less than an hour off of achieving round 200. Obviously, this was devastating for King Jack and his viewer base. Spending over 70 hours just to miss your goal by less than an hour would cause anyone to feel unmotivated to play again. In a way, it did for King Jack. While he still kept playing, he would try faster maps such as Doris to increase his chances of achieving round 200, meaning his round 199 Kino game would be his last on the map forever. Despite Jack achieving the biggest round bust in history, he would inspire many other players to join the high round scene and attempt world records, one of which was Magic Goldbox. At the time, Magic Goldbox was another upcoming Zombies player who achieved round 176 a month prior. To put that in perspective, Goldbox was one of 2 players who was nearly able to beat King Jack, the other which was Horde Kill Repeat, who beat King Jack and achieved round 188. This was very special as King Jack, for the first time in a while, was finally getting competition. This increased the hype for the first round 200 as 2 players were capable of reaching it, and starting on March 27th, 2013, Magic Goldbox would start his quest of achieving the first round 200. After his first upload of reaching round 100, Goldbox would upload updates of his game over the course of a couple of days. First, he reached round 135, and then round 171, and eventually round 186, a new personal best for Goldbox. Besides King Jack, this was the highest round achieved since Horde's 188 game. On top of that, Goldbox's game was flawless and much faster than King Jack's game. Goldbox came up with the new insta-kill strategy. The insta-kill strategy he used was in the alley and abused the AK-74U wallbuy. Although, instead of leaving the AK-74U unupgraded, he upgraded it to deal more damage, meaning the zombies would die in one hit. This allowed for faster and safer insta-kill rounds. Lastly, while unknown at the time, the alley does not spawn Nova Crawlers, which is really good, but in a different way. What most people think is it spawns normal zombies, which means they come to you faster, therefore making you play faster. In a way, it is true. However, each zombie counts as an extra entity towards the map. These are temporary as they go away once the zombie is off the map, but over time it will add up. So if all zombies count as one entity, how does it affect reset in any way? Well, Nova Crawlers count as 2 entities, not 1, meaning you will reset earlier than you want. This gave Goldbox an advantage as he achieved more rounds in this game due to the reset being an hour or 2 longer than King Jack's reset. Although this didn't guarantee him the first 200. There's a few things you have to understand why Goldbox's game was more vulnerable to ending than King Jack's games. First, he played on PC. Now playing PC gave players a slight advantage over console players, and that was trap lag. The more you activate traps over time, the game starts to slow down on console. This is probably due to the hardware limitations and the way the game was coded. Still, how does that give PC a slight disadvantage compared to console? Well, PC games were more likely to crash, especially back then due to hardware limitations, and having a bunch of programs running in the background would cause the game to play slower and eventually lead to a freeze or an error. And it was believed that PCs had no reset, meaning players could play as long as they want. Obviously, we know that PC and console reset at very similar times, but since nobody knew this back in the day, it became quite controversial. Surprisingly, this did not stop Goldbox from playing PC, because on April 4th, 2013, this happened. Two and a half years after Black Ops 1 launch, round 200 was finally achieved. A round which was thought to be impossible became possible. Although unknown to some, Goldbox still had 6 hours left in this game, which meant he could achieve an even higher round, and he did just that. On April 7th, his graphics card crashed on 209. That's right, round 209. To say this record is impressive is an understatement. A record this high quite literally ended off with a bang, and officially made zombies a competitive speedrun. While it doesn't have an official ending, players now had to play faster than Goldbox to beat his record. Otherwise, if they didn't, they would reset before achieving round 209. This now meant a player had to get luckier with dog rounds, or they'd have to come up with a new strategy to play faster. So that's what players did. And on October 31st, 2013, Extreme Toker, arguably one of the greatest zombie players of all time, would achieve round 212, running a somewhat new strategy called insta-trap. The insta-trap was pretty much the exact same as the insta-trap. However, the player would stand in a very small pocket inside of the fire trap. On top of that, the zombies from the MPL window would run into the trap, meaning the strategy was slightly faster. This strategy was created by 5&5 and Fishizor back in July of 2012, which may come as a surprise to you since the strategy was not used for nearly a year and a half later. The reason for this was the strategy barely getting recognized by the high round community, therefore making it relatively unknown. However, with Toger's new world record, he would bring the strategy to the spotlight, allowing players to play an even faster and safer Kino game. This was special as big players like Steve IL were interested in the strategy, eventually leading Steve and other players to attempt the Kino world record. Although running this strategy was very hard. Even though he had multiple lives and an infinite damaging wonder weapon, it was very easy to get trapped in the corner, eventually causing players to spam their thunder gun. This became a major problem as you want to conserve your ammo as much as possible to play faster and reduce traits which could cost a player the world record. So beating this record was very hard, eventually taking weeks and then months until it was broken. But then, on February 15th, 2014, Steve IL would achieve a new world record on Kino and just like Toker's game, he ran the insta-trap, or more commonly called the double trap. Although, unlike Toker's game, he ran no Nova crawlers. To do no Nova crawlers while running the double trap strategy, you have to avoid running into the lobby. This can be really useful when wanting to play faster and extending your reset, although you have to sacrifice quick revive, which is pretty unfortunate, but it is not impossible to do a flawless game. Despite sacrificing quick revive, players found running no Novas was worth it, and that's exactly what Steve did. Starting from round 1 all the way up to round 113, he would run no Novas, which was very impressive at the time. Sadly, Steve had to stop running no Novas on round 113 because he took it down due to a Thundergun fail. Still, this allowed Steve to save a good amount of time compared to Toker, which meant he had a high chance of beating Toker's game. As Steve progressed through the rounds, that chance slowly grew higher and higher, especially when he hit round 200. The estimated time Steve saved by reaching round 200 was roughly 1 to 2 hours faster than Toker, which meant he was a whole hour or two faster than Toker. This was really good for Steve as the rounds above 200 were roughly an hour long, meaning he would get at least one round higher than Toker. So Steve continued grinding through the rounds, and eventually found himself on round 205, then round 210, and eventually round 212, a new tied world record. This was insane. Steve could beat Toker's record by nearly 3 rounds with the pace he was going at. And 53 minutes into round 212, this happened. Yup, nearly 10 minutes away from beating Toker's record, Steve reset. This shocked everyone as Steve was 1 to 2 hours faster than Toker, yet he tied it. The reason this happened is due to Steve resetting an hour or two earlier than Toker, most likely due to the restarts which have entities override into a new game. As unfortunate as this game was, Steve tied the record, which meant 2 people held the record, although this wouldn't last for long. In the background, another player named Waltz was achieving Kino, and 2 days later on February 17th, 2014, Waltz would achieve round 213, a new world record, resetting nearly 74 hours in. Unfortunately, there is barely any gameplay of this record, so explaining what happened earlier in this game is next to impossible. But if there's one thing to take from this record, never underestimate the power of determination, because a new record by someone you don't know could be right around the corner. And 2 months later, on April 14th, 2014, Acerud would tie Waltz's world record. Acerud's record would be very similar to Steve's record as he played no novas to round 80, and he had a shorter reset than Waltz. Yet, he was able to tie Waltz's record, most likely due to dog rounds which can occur on 4 to 5 round intervals. The more 4-rounders you get, the faster you'll be, as dog rounds only take at most a minute to complete. Also, dog rounds occur on insta-kill rounds. This means you want as many dog rounds on non-insta-kill rounds to play faster. Although, because they can occur on insta-kill rounds, it is very easy to miss one and therefore makes you slower. This becomes a major problem as the game becomes more RNG dependent than skill based. However, just like any speedrun, players will restart for the perfect RNG. As annoying as it was to deal with, players would grind until they got their dream game, one of which was Filipino, arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest Kino player of all time. Why was he so good? Well, unlike other players, he pushed the limits of how long you can run no novas for. When he was grinding for the Kino record, he constantly pushed no novas to around 100, 110, hell even 120, and in some cases 130. This is really good as he was pushing no novas to nearly 20 hours in the game, which is a little less than 1/3 of the game. This meant he could play much faster than the previous records, and allowed him to push the record up exponentially. On November 30th, 2014, Flip would achieve round 220. Yep, you heard that right. Round 220. A 7-round difference from the previous world record. To understand how impressive this record was, Flip played no novas until he downed on round 135. It would only take one more down on round 176. On top of that, he was only 14 years old when he achieved this record. Lastly, it is estimated he played at least 5 hours faster than the previous world record, which is, well, to say the least, insane. Philip showed that running no novas for a long time was not impossible. This was groundbreaking as players, technically speaking, could run no novas to reset, which allowed them to save even more time than before. Since this was possible, it would encourage many players to attempt to run no novas past round 135. Hell, some players attempted to run no novas to reset. One of these players is someone you'll recognize. Yep, it's Magic Glowbox. Over the years since his 209 world record, Glowbox slowly got faster on the game. In fact, he got so good at playing fast, he would eventually achieve the first sub-7 hour on 100. This barrier would not be broken until 5 years later with Fire Rim's sub-6 hour around 100. Anyway, because Glowbox became so good at playing fast, he would attempt to run no novas as long and as optimized as possible. Though running this strategy was hard as hell. Glowbox would eventually get a few games, one of which was slightly higher than Philip's no novas record. I'm kidding, it's even scarier than that. On May 29th, 2015, Glowbox would achieve round 226. Yep, round 226. If it wasn't obvious enough, Glowbox had to run no novas further than Philip, and he didn't just achieve round 140, or 150, or 160. Hell, not even 170, 180, or even round 200. He ran no novas to reset. Yeah, you heard that right. 72 hours without entering the lobby once, and during those 72 hours, he would only take one down. Yeah, this record pretty much changed Kino forever. Not only did a player have to run no novas to reset, they could only take one down too. Although, there was one problem with Glowbox's game. He accidentally skipped round 123. Yeah, I know some of you are confused by this, so let me do some explaining. To skip a round, you have to wait until a round is about to change. When it's about to change, run into the fire trap room, and you'll skip a round. Obviously, this is not allowed for world record attempts. Although, since it's not allowed, it can become really frustrating when it happens by accident, and that's what happened to Glowbox. However, on round 224, Glowbox held a zombie in the window for 22 minutes to make up the round 123 skip. So, this record, while controversial, isn't as controversial as others for this reason. Because of this, I will count it as a new world record. In the following weeks, months, and years, not a single person could get close to Magic Glowbox's record. It wasn't until a well-known Zombies player, RoxWrong, attempted to beat it. Compared to other players, RoxWrong was a perfect one to beat this record, as he held the Origins world record. Also, he was pretty good at Black Ops 3 and held a few world records there. So, to say RoxWrong was a bad player is a huge understatement. Even running no novas to reset was not a challenge to him, because on January 7th, 2017, RoxWrong would achieve round 228 on Kino der Toten. Starting from round 1, Rox would get the near perfect setup, and from round 30 to round 128, he would get some of the luckiest dogs ever. While the exact number of 4-rounders Rox got is unknown, it's pretty likely he got at least 35 4-rounders in this game, and he barely missed any instas, which allowed him to play faster. Despite playing with Nova Crawlers and running alley instas, Rox's dog luck allowed him to achieve round 228. If it wasn't obvious enough, this does not sound right. Even with the luckiest dogs and barely any missed instas, Rox would not have achieved round 228. This record became quite suspicious as more players looked into it. How was it possible to beat Glowbox by 2 rounds running strategies that were much slower than his? Well, what the players found was shocking. RoxRwrong, who is a well-known and very trusted player, was caught modding his game. It turns out Rox was found to have a mod menu, or a modding program on his desktop. Now in his 228 game, Rox moved his cursor off the screen. So how is it possible he only had one monitor? Well, it wasn't Rox playing, it's actually Wings of Oblivion. Wings of Oblivion was a well-known modder in the Zombies community, most notably his modded No Man's Land world record on Moon, and his modded round 218 Kino game. Anyway, Wings had 2, possibly 3 or more monitors at the time, which explains why the cursor went off screen in RoxWrong's game. Still, there is more evidence to point to this game being modded. In the game, Wings was playing under RoxWrong's name, which had 2 capitals, and he was playing on PC, which means he was most likely playing the Steam version of Black Ops. However, the only person named RoxWrong on Steam had all lower cases, no capitals. This means Wings most likely used Zolfernos, which is a commonly used Black Ops 1 trainer / mod tool for zombies, usually used for practicing strategies. Although, it allows players to change their name mid-game, which might explain how Wings was able to play under RoxWrong's name with 2 capitals instead of all lower cases. This is just 2 of many pieces of evidence confirming Rox's game was modded. Still, this doesn't answer the most asked question. Why did a well-known and trusted player allow Wings to mod a game and pass it off as its own? No one knows the exact reason why Rox did this, though RoxWrong said on Twitter the modded Kino game was a troll, and he actually made a video about it, but it has since been privated, although I believe otherwise. For a well-known and trusted player to randomly mod a game and then say it was a troll does not sound right to me. This leads to the possibility Wings used something from Rox's past as blackmail. If this was the case, then RoxWrong was actually a victim, not a perpetrator. In his final post on Twitter, he uploaded a screenshot responding to the players who called him out. In the tweet, he said truth, justice, insight, responsibility, reflection, and retribution. So what was the truth? What really happened during the Kino game? Unfortunately, we will probably never know, as Rox most likely will never come back, as this was his first and only permanent scar he got. Because of Rox's game, many players were discouraged to play Kino besides one player. This player that had been playing Kino for a while now, and became one of the fastest to play the map, In fact, they were so good, they would eventually achieve a new record around 227. Can you guess who it is? That's right, it's Magic Global. Just kidding, it was actually ZombieTube. ZombieTube was a fairly unknown zombie player and is barely talked about in current times. However, he was one of the most influential players of all time. During his time playing Kino, he would come up with a new strategy called Triple Trap. This strategy used a fire trap and an electric trap leading to the stage, but it also used a dressing room trap. The new strategy was approximately 3 seconds per horde faster than the double trap, or 3 SPH for short. This made Kino der Toten one of the first near-optimized maps, hence why ZombieTube was one of the most influential players. However, his influence isn't the only thing that separated him from other players. His skill was on another level. How, you ask? Well, in his 227 game, he played flawlessly. Yep, you heard that right. 0 downs. To make it more impressive, his flawless world record still has not been broken nearly 4 years later. Also, he was on pace to achieve round 230. Sadly, he got really unlucky with his dog round and reset an hour earlier than Globox did. But he was 2 hours and a half faster than Globox did 226, which shows you just how fast Triple Trap was. Obviously, this record was monumental, and beating it would be very, very challenging. Adding on, starting around late 2017 to early 2018, Black Ops Zombies was going through a big change. It was found out if you disable graphic content, you can extend your reset by a couple of hours, and doing fast restarts made your reset lower. So players did a safe restart. A safe restart is when you quit out of map and relaunch it. This resets the entities to 0, which will make your reset as optimized as possible. Lastly, players found out if you open certain doors such as debris, it will remove a specific amount of entities from a map. Depending on the map, if you activate the Easter egg song, it would remove 3 entities off the map. On the map Shangri-La, if you activate the minecart, it removes 1 permanent entity. This is just a few of many ways players can extend a reset. Still, despite players optimizing the reset to the fullest, beating ZombieTube's record was very hard. Running no novas at 22 SPH the entire game with 0 downs was almost impossible. Starting around early to mid 2018, there was a surge of players who were attempting the Kino record because of the optimized reset. Also, it was found if you remove Quick Revive off the map, it extends a reset roughly 20 to 30 plus minutes. On paper, this sounds like a terrible idea, but you have to remember you can only take 1 down and continue running no novas, so removing Quick Revive was worth it. Still, players struggled reaching high rounds as running the triple trap fast was extremely hard. After some time, players tried running no novas to a high round such as 150, and then running the rest of the game with novas so they could play safer. This was perfect because 1/3 of their game was played really fast, while the other remaining 2/3 was played safe, and somewhat fast too, allowing them to potentially beat ZombieTube's record by 1 to 2 rounds, mostly due to the extended reset. On August 31st, 2018, one of the best and most underrated zombie players, Tango Fam, would achieve round 228. Remember when I said players would play 1/3 of their game with no novas? Well, unlike other players, Tango attempted to run no novas as long as possible, and he pretty much did for almost the entirety of the game, although on round 187 he would take it down, due to a Thundergun fail. As shit as the down was, Tango kept Quick Revive on the map because he expected to take it down, so on round 190, he bought Quick Revive and played with novas. This also meant he had to play AK-74U instas, which isn't ideal, though playing these strategies did not matter as he played no novas for 2/3 of the game. Eventually, Tango would reach round 228, but then, 28 minutes later, Tango reset 75 hours and 33 minutes into the game, making this the longest reset achieved on Kino. Despite playing much slower than ZombieTube and Globox, Tango proved you can still get the record even at a slow pace. At the same time, this inspired players to play as fast as possible for perfect optimization. One of these players I will mention is Slayer. Despite being one of the most known players in the zombies community in current times, back in 2018 he was relatively unknown, which is shocking when you realize he was and is still one of the fastest players ever. Starting around the age of 13 and 14, he would achieve a few speedrun world records, some of the most notable ones being the town round 30 and 50 speedruns, and the Dries round 50 speedrun world records. This is just one of many records he would achieve, and in early to mid 2018, he set his eyes on Kino. Within just a few weeks, he became familiar with triple trap. Still, playing triple trap was very hard, but that did not stop him. In fact, it encouraged him to try and optimize the strategy as much as possible. Why? Well, he intended on running no novas the entire game. As difficult as it was, Slayer was very good at playing consistently, meaning he could deal with less issues compared to the previous players. On September 16th, 2018, Slayer would achieve a new record of not 228, not 229, or 230 or 231, hell, not even 232 or 233. Slayer would achieve round 235, making this the biggest round gap since Glowbox's 209. Also, this became the third game to run no novas to reset, and for the first time in history, Kino became near perfectly optimized. A record this good, which was thought to be impossible, became possible. Even some of the best Kino players struggled to beat the record, and it has remained that way since. Okay, I got ahead of myself there. While the record is impressive as hell, you can still beat it. Theoretically speaking, you could reach round 240, although you would need insane dog luck and barely any missed instas. Despite 235 being optimized as hell, that didn't stop players from attempting to reach round 240, though it would take years until any player got close to Slayer's world record. Throughout the entirety of 2019, barely any players would reach round 230, which is another example showing you just how hard it was to beat Slayer's 235. It wasn't until early 2020 players were able to reach round 230, mostly due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Because of the pandemic, more players than ever could play 70+ hour games. This inspired some well-known players such as Magic Glowbox to attempt the Kino world record, and within a month of the pandemic, Glowbox would achieve a new record of 236. However, there was another controversy. Despite playing faster than Slayer, players found out Glowbox used a health bar. This allows a player to see their exact health. Depending on the map, this can be really useful, such as Shangri-La, which has a wonder weapon called the Baby Gun. This wonder weapon shrinks zombies into small zombies, allowing them to die instantly with any weapon. In the process of shrinking the zombies, the damage they deal is decreased too. Instead of dealing 60 damage per zombie slap, the baby zombies deal 5 damage per slap. This can become an issue as figuring out your exact health without a health bar is near impossible, as zombies can slap extremely fast when they're small. This is not the only thing a health bar can come in handy for. Traps can be an advantage with a health bar too. Specifically the fire trap, which deals less than 60 damage each time you're in it. Obviously this is really useful as the game sometimes does not give you a red screen when you're low on health. If a person is using a health bar, they'll know they are low on health and will shoot their T-gun or get out of the fire trap depending on the situation. So you can see why this is quite controversial. Because it's a relatively controversial game, it's tricky to figure out who has the record as the community is pretty split on the game. However, compared to certain advantages such as fast ray, the health bar is up there in terms of the biggest advantages you can get. So since this is my video, I've come to the very tough decision of deciding Slayer's 235 game is a record. Still, this doesn't discredit Glowbox's game. At the end of the day, this is my opinion, and if there's something to be learned from this, respect others, even if you don't like their opinions. Thanks for watching.
I don't know if I'll be available, okay? So he's like...
One, because you want to watch Fortnite World Cup. I'm sorry, I'm not having this guy on the podcast if I'm getting Fortnite World Cup. I'm not having you on the podcast.